Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you my August reading wrap up. So today I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in August. I read 6 books and I'll have content warnings in the description box down below if you want to check those out. And without further ado, let's get right down to the books. So the first book I read is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, and this one follows these two siblings, a girl and a boy, who grew up in this family, and the girl has always been told that she's destined for nothing and the son has always been destined for greatness, and she decides that she is going to take her brother's place and kind of switch identity so that she can be the one who falls into greatness rather than him. And I have to say, I sadly felt mediocre about this book. I really wanted to love it a bit more than I did, but I'm not saying it's a bad book, and I think other people will be able to enjoy this one more than I did. What I struggled with is the fact that I feel like nothing too much happened, or when things were happening I just wasn't as invested as I wanted to be in terms of the plot. I felt like it was very slow moving, and when it did get moving, the things that happened, I could foresee the way that they would fall into place. Our main character was very interesting. They go through a lot of development and a lot of questioning of identity, and I thought that was very, very interesting, and I really liked seeing that. But at the same time, they were also so stuck on the idea of fate and greatness that it felt a bit repetitive. It just kept coming back to light, and I understood that this is the theme that you wanted to push with the book, but it was just a bit too much. It was just a bit too on the nose for my liking. I felt like the world building was quite mediocre. I would have wanted more world building. There were some magical elements to this, but this book did not quite lean into it, and I can tell that this is leaning towards there being a sequel, so maybe it will lean into the magical elements a bit more in the next book. But I did kind of want to see a bit more explanation or a bit more exploration of that in this first book, but instead it mostly focused on the war. And even though war politics is one of my favorite things to read about in fantasy books, I felt like the politics in this one weren't as complex or as complicated as it tried to pass off as being, so I could see the outcome of these political turmoils and situations fairly easily. I didn't particularly connect or really enjoy any of the characters. There was one female character that was interesting. I felt like she didn't get as much of a focus as I would have liked, or if she did get a focus, it just wasn't captivating me enough. I don't think that this book particularly did anything wrong per se, it just failed to engage me on the level that I need in a fantasy book, so it just felt a bit underwhelming because I've seen how much hype there is and how many people love this one. So this was just an okay one for me, but I do think other fantasy readers might like it more. Then we come across a book that I really didn't like, and I know it's going to tickle a lot of people because it's a very hyped book on BookTube, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. It's no secret that I've struggled with V.E. Schwab's books in the past, and this was definitely going to be my very last chance to see if this author could possibly be one for me, but I just have to give it up and call it off because her books, me, were just unfortunately not compatible. So in this one, we follow Addie LaRue, who is cursed to be forgotten every time somebody sees her. So for the duration that she's within your eyesight, everything is fine, but as soon as you look away, you forget about her and you don't remember her anymore. And it's about her life as an invisible person that no one can remember. But one day she meets this boy and he remembers her, and she wants to figure out why. This whole book fell flat for me for a number of reasons. The first one being that I could not get over the curses in this book. The way that these characters made these deals just screamed of privilege to me. Addie LaRue's, maybe there's a bit of sympathy there, but I feel like in terms of the historical context, it's not as unique a situation as historical fiction makes it seem like it is, and in those situations she isn't even getting the worst off consequences of those situations. So that deal I was like, And then there's more deals mentioned in this book, and some of them just screamed of privilege to the max, and I couldn't get behind them. I just felt like these characters put themselves in these situations and it could have been avoided. Then when it comes to the characters, they just absolutely fell flat to me. I always struggle with connecting to V.E. Schwab's female characters, and the same was with Addie LaRue. I just didn't feel like she had much of a personality. I didn't feel like she had any personality outside of the situation that she was in and appreciating art. That's all there was to her, and I didn't feel a connection to any other part of her. She didn't feel 3D to me. And then there was also this main character, Henry, who just I just couldn't stand him. He just gets away with absolutely everything. I feel like he kind of has such a good life and he just cruises through it and there's not really much struggle, and yet he creates all these issues for himself, and I'm just like, you have so much. Take advantage of it. And it frustrated me to no end. So even though I started off liking his character, the more I learned about him, the less I liked him. There is also supposedly a demon character in this one, and I just feel like this demon character was so bad as a demon. He didn't scare me, he wasn't haunting, he wasn't gothic, he wasn't dark to me. He just seemed like another person. And I feel like for plot convenience, certain things were able to happen simply because the plot needed them, rather than him being such a big villain or such a big problem. Very easily solved in this book. I also feel like him as a demon was just so feeding into the dark romance kind of demon. He didn't scare me at all. He was just supposed to be like sexy but also unavailable because he's a demon, and I don't know, I just can't get behind that. I've already acknowledged that those kind of dark romances aren't my thing, and for some reason I didn't think this book would fall into that category, but unfortunately it kind of did. I'm not saying it's a new adult romance, but it still just has some of those elements, and I'm not a big fan of those elements in books, so it's a bit of a it's not you, it's me situation. But yeah, I just thought this one was just so disappointing. I was bored. It went on and on and on. It got very, very repetitive very, very quickly. And I was disappointed by how repetitive it was for such a long book. Wasn't good. This one was a buddy read with Hannah from Ladette M. So thank you, Hannah, for buddy reading with me. I did also listen to this on audiobook because I just wanted to get through with it. But unfortunately, Lee Schwab is just not the author for me, and I'm gonna stop trying because I've given her quite a few chances. I then read my favourite book of the month. It was a new favourite for me, and that is Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. It's no secret that I love this series. I'm fully in the hype. I fully love these boys. They can do no wrong. This was absolutely such a happy read. There's no way I could pick up this book and not come off finishing my reading session with a smile on my face. It's just always making me smile, always making me happy, and that is so interesting because this was actually probably the darkest book in the comic series. So the first book, I should tell you, follows these two boys, and the synopsis of the first one is boy meets boy, boy has crush on boy, and it goes from there. It's adorable, it's cute. But this one, it does look at eating disorders, and it does that in quite a lot of detail, especially being in a relationship with someone who has an eating disorder. And I think it managed to do that, from what I can understand, very, very well, and very sensitively as well. It really focused on mental health. It looked at all of that. So there's quite a lot of, you know, hard emotions, intense emotions going on in this book, and yet it could still make me happy. It could still make me smile. I also thought it was really nice to see the character development that both of these characters go through, but also that the friends seem to go through. I always get Nick and Charlie confused. I love Nick's sister. She is one of my favourite characters. I just loved everything she did in this book. She's there in the small pieces here and there, but everything she does, literal gold. She is amazing. And it also talks a lot of still quite a bit about coming out, which is interesting because it's been talking about that since volume 1. But one of the things I love about this series is that it shows how coming out is a process. You have to come out to literally every person you meet at some point, so it's not just a done and deal thing and it's all wrapped up and finished. I like that it continues talking about that. I love seeing all of the friends, all of the side characters, the support that they give, but also them going through their own things in the background. It's just an absolutely heartwarming and brilliant comic. I don't see why other people don't read it. I say graphic novel. I should say graphic novel rather than comic. And it just so happened that the extra bonus content at the end followed my favourite ship, which made me especially happy. I also read another volume of Saga by Brian Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I'm trying to remember which volume of Saga I read, and I'm not quite pulling it up. I think I read volume 5. If that is wrong, it'll flash up on the screen which volume it is, but I'm pretty sure it's volume 5. Gonna put this big book down so I can show the cover of that particular volume. In this series, we're in a science fiction galaxy kind of world where there are two planets and they are at war. There's a big clash, but two people from opposing sides of the war fall in love and they have a baby. But this baby is kind of a symbol that peace could exist between the two warring sides. So both sides want to kill this baby, and of course the parents don't want that. So it's about these parents going through space trying to dodge all the people that want to kill them and kill their child. And a lot has happened since then, because we are in volume 5, and this This graphic novel series is intense, but I always really enjoy it. I think this one was probably a bit slow for me. Not as much happens in this one as it seems to happen in all the other ones. There were less exciting points, there were a few of those, and I just find it interesting seeing how different groups of people who have very different goals end up working together because they just have one shared common element, and the groups of people who are traveling together or working together is always shifting and changing. Loyalties are always fluid and changing and everything. There's betrayals, there's loyalties, it's all such an interesting mess. One of my favorite things has always been seeing parental figures as main characters in this book, doing things like killing people and fighting, but also trying to change their kid's nappy and also really looking after their child. I just find that all so interesting. I love seeing how much they love their families, but also all of this fighting is going on in the background and shooting and everything, and it's just such a good time. So even though this one was maybe not my favorite volume because, you know, not as much happened, it's a bit slower, I will say that this series is definitely worth reading, and as on a whole I really enjoy it. Then we're switching to non-fiction. The next book I read is The Dragons, the Giant and the Woman by Wei Tu Moore, and this one is a memoir and it's about her journey escaping the first Liberian civil war. So she makes the journey from Liberia to the USA, and I thought this was fantastically done and I really recommend this book. It was so interesting because it starts off with her as a child and she's experiencing these things from a child's perspective, and you can just see that they don't really understand what is going on, and their dad is working so hard to keep them calm but also to push them as much as they can so that they can get to points of safety. The family situation is a bit complex for different reasons, and that gets shown to you throughout the book. And the love that the father has for these children is just so evident in every single page. And in the beginning of the book I was like, wow, you can see the father's love and how much they care for them and everything, but then by the end of the book you can also see the mother's love, and I loved how it took the time to show each parent and show how each parent just truly loved and cared for their children, for their family, and would do absolutely anything for them. That was absolutely beautiful to see in this book. It goes into some of the harrowing and horrible things that people did or had to do in the Civil War, which is just absolutely awful, but it also takes a look at displacement as they had to immigrate and become refugees so that they could survive. So it talks about displacement a little bit and what it's like being of two cultures and missing one and enjoying elements of the other. It looked into the way that the USA views Africa and Africans versus the way Africa views the USA and things like that. It was just such a powerful memoir, and when it says a memoir of family, war and peace, that is exactly what you are getting. It delves into it so much. I think Moore wrote this fantastically. Very good read, really recommend it. I learned a lot about the Civil War that I'd never been taught about or never taken the time to educate myself about because I just didn't know enough about it, and now I know a lot more and can appreciate it. Oh, and as the title says, The Dragons, the Giant, the Woman, it's because there's a metaphor that kind of runs throughout this book. Don't worry, it's not a heavy metaphor that makes it very hard to understand what's happening or cloud over the story, but it is a metaphor that really fit in, especially when she was a child trying to piece together what was happening while she was also running from the Civil War. And I just thought that metaphor was beautiful and wonderfully woven into the story in a way that was clear but also engaging. And then the last book I read last month was a book that I read on my Kindle on the tube, and that is All Adults Here by Emma Straub. And this one was just a middle of the road read for me. Basically all you do is you follow this family that live in a small town, and it's just a snippet of their lives and a slice of life story about what's going on in this town. And they're all kind of making some big decisions like coming out, or what they want to do with their romantic relationships, or having a child, and it just follows them doing that. There's really not that much to it, which is why it was a middle of the road read for me. It was just okay. I liked the characters, I didn't particularly love them. It was interesting seeing what they were getting up to, but they weren't particularly doing anything exciting. I don't think the book reached a particular conclusion. It just finished. It was just that part of their life, and it was okay. It was a nice read, but I don't actually have that much to say about it. So those are the 6 books that I read in the month of August. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you have read any of these books or what was the last book you finished reading. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!